I won 62 million in the lottery but kept it hidden until my family faced this devastating crisis. The sun hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows over the small town of Maplewood. It was here that Emily Rivers, a seemingly ordinary woman, held a staggering secret: she had won 62 million in the lottery. But what made this story so unbelievable wasn't just the wealth, it was the desperate measures she took to keep it hidden. Nobody expected Emily's life to spiral into chaos, but amidst the mundane routines of family dinners and school pickups, a heart-stopping crisis was about to unfold. When the knock came at the door, it was punctuated by an uneasy silence. There was something heavy in the air, as if the very atmosphere held its breath. Emily's heart raced as she answered, revealing two serious-faced detectives standing on her porch. A lump formed in her throat. They weren't here for a friendly chat. The words, "missing person," and "suspicious activity," cut through the stillness like a knife. Emily felt a cold sweat trickle down her back. She glanced over her shoulder, catching a glimpse of her husband, Mark, pacing nervously. What if they discovered her secret? What if they found out that while their family struggled with bills and tuition fees, Emily had been living with a fortune buried deep in her closet? It felt like a heavy weight on her chest. The stakes were rising, and every second seemed to stretch like an eternity. Around town, whispers grew like wildfires. "Did you hear about Emily?" people would murmur in hushed tones, their eyes wide with intrigue. Children overheard, their innocent minds swirling with imagined horrors. Emily's friends looked at her differently, their gazes pierced with suspicion. Just as her life seemed perfectly unremarkable, a storm brewed on the horizon, one that could destroy the delicate fabric of her family. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Emily gripped the doorframe, icy fingers of fear wrapped around her heart. The detectives exchanged grim looks as they spoke of the missing local man, hinting at connections to her family. With every word, the danger crept closer. What if someone found out her hidden wealth? What if that money wasn't the golden ticket she thought it was, but rather a curse? A shiver shot through her. Tomorrow held the promise of more questions and darker shadows. How did her life spiral into this catastrophe? As fear gnawed at her, Emily sensed something lurking in the corners of her family's once peaceful home. A heavy feeling settled deep in her gut. What were they really looking for? And could she shield her family from the mess that was about to unfold? The door swung shut with a soft click, but the sound echoed like a bomb in Emily's mind. She turned to Mark, who was now frozen in place, his face as pale as a ghost. The whispering shadows in their home felt more ominous than ever, and she noticed her hands trembling. What do they want? Mark's voice was barely a whisper, filled with both fear and curiosity. I don't know, Emily replied, her entire body tensed. She could feel the weight of her secret pressing down on her. Each second felt like a countdown to catastrophe. They had to prepare. The kitchen clock ticked away, counting down moments of dread. She hurried to grab a jar from the shelf, heart racing as she looked inside. The modest amount of cash she had stashed for emergencies felt trivial against the backdrop of her hidden wealth. But how could she tell Mark? Would he understand? Suddenly, there was another knock, but this time it wasn't on the door. It was a frantic pounding that rattled the windows. Mark's expression shifted from fear to outright panic. What if there's more to this? What if they? Emily placed a hand on his arm, trying to steady him. We need to think. What do we tell them? Before she could answer, the pounding became a fierce hammering. They exchanged frightened glances. Mark slipped his phone from his pocket, and before he could say a word, Emily's heart dropped. The screen flashed a message: "Can't stay quiet any longer. They're coming for you." "Who?" Mark asked, his voice thick with disbelief. Emily opened her mouth, but no words came out. Did someone know her secret? The house felt more like a trap than a home. Outside, the shadows deepened, and the streetlights flickered. She could see silhouettes of curious neighbors peering into their windows, whispering behind cupped hands. "Maybe we should pack a bag," Mark suggested, almost instinctively. Panic gripped his features, and Emily felt her heart racing even faster. Leaving was not an option, not until she understood the stakes. Suddenly, the door burst open, and in walked the two detectives, their imposing figures framed by the dim light of the hallway. "We need to speak with you again, Mrs. Rivers," one of them said, his voice low and serious. "Now?" Emily stammered, her pulse pounding. She felt paralyzed. "Now," the second detective affirmed, stepping inside. "You need to come with us. It's about the missing man." Mark's hand found hers, squeezing tightly. "What do they want?" With every word spoken, Emily felt the ground beneath her shift. Whatever they were about to reveal could unravel her life. They had to get to the bottom of this, and fast. As her heart drummed in her chest, a thought clawed at her mind: what if this was only the beginning? "Wait!" Emily suddenly shouted, her voice cutting through the suffocating tension. "What do you know about him? Who is he?" The detectives exchanged a glance, and the first officer's lips curled into a grim smile. "Let's just say, your lottery win has been a part of something much bigger than you realize." With that revelation, a cold shiver raced up her spine. The walls closed in, and reality flipped upside down. What danger lurked just beyond their doorstep? What had she stumbled into, and could she truly protect her family from the catastrophic fallout that was looming ever closer? Emily's heart raced as the detectives stepped deeper into their home, each footfall thudding ominously against the hardwood floors. "What do you mean?" she demanded, trying to mask her escalating fear with bravado. "What does my lottery win have to do with a missing man?" The first detective, a tall man with a chiseled jaw, adjusted his fedora while stepping closer. "We've been looking into the disappearance of Thomas Grayson. He was involved in the same lottery syndicate you won from." A chill struck her, as if someone had doused her in ice water. "Involved? I don't know anything about him." "But you might have more connections than you think," the other detective interjected, his eyes narrowing. "Lottery wins draw attention from all sorts. Sometimes, it's not the money that brings trouble. It's the people behind it." Mark's grip tightened on her hand, his knuckles going white. "What does this guy have to do with Emily?" "Everything," the first detective replied, his eyes going from Mark to Emily, weighing their fear. "Mr. Grayson was known to have dealings that went far beyond legitimate. People began to notice when the winnings were split among those in his circle. We suspect he was into something dangerous." "Dangerous?" Emily felt nausea wash over her. She had always assumed her win would bring security, not unraveling threads of peril. "He vanished 3 nights ago. No sign, no leads." But 2 days before that the detective paused, letting the silence swell. "He was seen talking to someone in a dark corner of the local diner. A witness said he looked frightened, anxious." "Anxious?" Mark repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if he knew something? About the lottery, about you?" "Exactly," the detective replied, his expression resolute. "That's why we need your full cooperation. We might be able to find him or at least understand what happened." Emily's mind whirled. The weight of this revelation was crushing. She had stumbled into a dark reality she had never anticipated. Keeping her lottery win a secret was supposed to protect them, but what if this secrecy brought about more danger? "What do we need to do?" she asked, her voice steadying. "First, we need you to remain in town. If anything happens, you'll be our primary point of contact," the second detective warned. We can't have you disappearing on us while things heat up. The room tensed as they exchanged strained glances. The shadows around them seemed to pulse, whispering dark secrets. But before she could digest this, a loud crash came from the back of the house, shattering their fragile calm. What was that? Mark shouted, jumping to his feet. Stay here. Emily ordered, adrenaline surging. She crept toward the sound, every hair on her body standing on end, her heart hammering harder than ever. As she reached the kitchen door, she hesitated, hearing muffled voices. Frantic shouts and a thud sent terror pulsing through her veins. The detectives rushed behind her, weapons drawn, and suddenly, the atmosphere turned toxic with anticipation. Emily's mind raced as she pushed the door open. What awaited them on the other side? Outside in the fading light, silhouettes emerged, each one menacing. Figures dressed in dark clothes, faces obscured, were making their way across the yard. In that moment, she knew they were inches away from a horrifying confrontation. What do they want? She gasped, her voice trembling. The detective looked at her, a mix of urgency and dread in his eyes. I think, we're about to find out the real reason they're here. And with the truth on the horizon, a chilling question lingered in the air: were they walking into danger, or were they already caught in a trap? The tension crackled as the figures moved closer, a ghostly procession of shadows against the twilight. Emily felt like a deer in headlights, frozen in a mix of fear and disbelief. The detectives tensed, their weapons aimed with precision, but the advancing silhouettes didn't seem too concerned. Get back inside. The first detective ordered firmly, his voice sharp like a knife cutting through the thick atmosphere. Mark grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her toward the house. She resisted, her eyes fixed on the approaching figures, trying to see what they wanted. Were they here for her? For Mark? A rush of emotions flooded her: confusion, fear, and a desperate need to protect the only person who truly mattered to her. Those thoughts were torn away as the figures broke into the light, revealing their faces. The men were rough-looking, with tattoos snaking up their necks and hard expressions that spoke of a life filled with violence. Emily's heart plummeted. They looked like trouble. What do you want? Mark shouted, using all his courage. His bravado was thin, nearly wavering as he stood beside her. Step aside, one of the men growled, his voice gravelly. We're not here for you. His focus remained on the detectives, although a sinister smile crept across his face, revealing yellowed teeth. The second detective moved in front of Emily and Mark, positioning himself as though he could shield them from the threat. You need to leave. There's no business here for you. We've got plenty of business, officer. The man laughed darkly, and in that moment, Emily recognized the tension in the air. It was more than just a warning, it was a declaration of intent. Suddenly, another crash echoed from the other side of the house. Everyone's heads turned, eyes wide with apprehension. Emily's heart raced. Had they missed something? Were there more of them? Panic swelled within her chest like a rising tide, threatening to engulf her. Stay close, the detective urged, his voice low and tense. Taking a deep breath, Emily glanced at Mark. His eyes mirrored her fear but also a flicker of determination. What if they know about the lottery? He whispered. It was a chilling thought. The detectives had already warned her that her win could draw dangerous attention. Had they come to collect what they believed was rightfully theirs? Ma'am, the second detective said, snapping her attention back. No matter what happens, don't run. Do you understand? Before she could respond, the men moved forward, a tight knot of animosity coiling around them. You don't get to tell us what to do, one of them spat, stepping dangerously close. Emily's breath hitched. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was all connected, that they were digging deeper into a grave she didn't even know existed. The lottery win loomed like a dark cloud, threatening to unleash chaos. Suddenly, the detective raised his weapon. Stand down. He warned, his voice straining under the weight of authority. But the man who had spoken first chuckled, a low, menacing sound. You really think you can stop us? We're not here for a chat. In that instant, the air charged with impending violence. Emily felt the world narrowing around her, the looming threat, the fear coursing through her veins, and an uncertain future. Just then, another figure emerged from the shadows, someone familiar, someone she hadn't seen in years. It was Tom, her ex-boyfriend, wearing a wild expression that sent danger signals flashing in her mind. Emily! Get back! He shouted, rushing toward them. Everything shifted as dread seeped into the cracks of her resolve. What was he doing here? And how was he connected to this madness? As they stood at the brink of chaos, a new terrifying thought entered her mind. Was her past about to catch up with her, spiraling into a life-altering confrontation? And just like that, the question hung heavy in the air: who could she trust when everything she knew teetered on the edge of disaster? The moment Tom shouted her name, the atmosphere shifted again. It was as if a thick fog rolled through, merging her past with her present in the most terrifying way. Emily's heart raced. She never wanted to see Tom again, not after how things had ended between them. Tom! Mark shouted, a mix of confusion and anger flooding his voice. What the hell are you doing here? Stop! Just stop! Tom yelled, rushing forward, disregarding the detectives and the men advancing like wolves closing in on prey. You have no idea what you're in the middle of. Emily felt the ground tremble beneath her, as if the earth itself was shaking under the weight of all their secrets. She looked around, searching for answers in the eyes of those around her. The detectives, their muscles tense, were poised for action, ready to protect her. But would that be enough? What do you mean? She managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. He stopped just short of the tattooed men, breathing heavily, panic etched across his face. They're connected to the lottery. You have to listen to me. The laughter from the lead man cut through the tension like a blade. Oh, isn't this adorable? The ex has come to play hero. Let me make this clear. We're not here to chat or reminisce about old times. The second detective raised his weapon slightly, keenly aware of the danger, but Emily's thoughts spiraled into chaos. Lottery? How could Tom have possibly known? Get back, Emily, Mark urged, his grip tightening on her arm. Don't let him near you. For a fleeting second, Emily considered taking Mark's advice, hiding behind the detectives. But she couldn't. Tom was still a piece of her history, a piece she'd never fully understood. What do you know, Tom? His eyes darted around, calculating. You're in deeper than you think. They've been watching you since you won. You can't trust anyone. A dull thud reverberated through the night as one of the tattooed men stepped closer, face twisted in a sneer. Time's up. This little family reunion is over. Emily's breath hitched. Her world, which had only recently cracked open with the possibility of a new life, was spiraling into an abyss. The detectives stood tense, weapons raised, but the men were now advancing with purpose. The palpable tension hung in the air, thick enough to cut. Now, let us talk business, the lead man said, his grin wide and predatory. Business? The word echoed in Emily's mind, wrapping around her like a vice. Business meant demands, obligations, the very core of what had drawn this chaos to her door. The lottery wasn't just a stroke of luck, it had invited danger. Suddenly, a series of sirens wailed in the distance, a flash of blue lights illuminating the night, cutting through the darkness as if offering a glimmer of hope. Please, I'm begging you, Tom pleaded. You have to leave now. There's no telling what they'll do if you. Before he could finish, the tattooed man lunged forward, throwing a fist that connected deeply with Tom's jaw, sending him sprawling to the ground. Emily gasped, her heart in her throat. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was spiraling into violence. A moment later, she felt the icy grip of fear grip her chest as she realized they were trapped. The detectives were outnumbered, and the men weren't just here for a handshake. Then, with a loud bang, something shattered nearby. The sound echoed in her ears, and everything slowed down. Was it a gunshot? A warning? Her breath caught as she tried to process the chaos around her. "Run!" she screamed, breaking the silence, but it felt far too late. Mark's grip loosened as he pulled her back toward the house, heart pounding, but she'd never felt more lost. Where could they hide? What were her options? In that moment, the choice ahead of her was stark. Trust Tom and step deeper into the unknown, or retreat back to the safety of her home and possibly watch everything crumble around her. As fear washed over her, a sharp voice cut through the air one last time. "We're not done here, Emily." Who was she meant to trust? All she wanted was to find freedom from her past. But instead, it felt like she was being pulled back into the dark web of deceit and danger. As the rain began to fall, mixing with the fear swirling inside her, a single thought consumed her: how far would she go to protect her new life, and what consequences would she face to keep it? Her heart raced as she felt the rain beating against her skin, cold and unforgiving. Adrenaline surged within her as Mark pulled her toward the house, the looming structure now a sanctuary or a trap. She couldn't shake the feeling that every choice they made could lead to disaster. The flashes of blue lights danced off the walls, illuminating the fear etched in Mark's face. "Emily!" Mark shouted, twisting around to face her. "We have to go inside, now." The tattooed men were closing in. Their confidence was unnerving. Could they be convinced to back off, or were they too far gone? She glanced back at Tom, who was writhing on the ground, blood trickling from his mouth, a terrifying reminder of how quickly things could go wrong. "Tom!" she yelled, her voice thick with urgency. "Get up. We can't leave you." The lead man smirked, clearly amused by their panic. "Isn't that sweet? But there's no room for heroics here. Don't listen to him." Tom groaned, struggling to get to his feet. "Just get inside." Emily hesitated. She felt anchored by the past. Leaving Tom could mean sealing both their fates, her new life and his. Mark, sensing her turmoil, tightened his grip on her arm. "Choose, Emily. It's him or us." Mark's voice was sharp, slicing through the chaos. The urgency in his tone only heightened her fear. The sirens were growing louder now, closing in a desperate race against time. But was help really coming, or would they arrive too late? She internally grappled with the whirlpool of emotions swirling through her. She didn't want to abandon Tom, but she couldn't shake the feeling that staying involved would put everyone in deeper danger. "Please, Emily. Trust me." Tom's voice broke through her thoughts, laced with desperation. "We have to escape. We can figure this out." She was so lost, clenching her fists as her breath hitched. The choices lay heavy in her gut. Was trusting Tom a leap into the abyss, or was Mark's advice the anchor she needed? The men were closing in, and they had to act. "Go, Emily!" shouted one of the detectives, eyes darting from the tattooed men to where they stood. He recalibrated his weapon, clearly on edge. "I can hold them off." But Mark shook his head vehemently, taking a step back, pulling her away from the detectives. "Not without you." The rain poured harder, drowning out the sound of approaching sirens. It was an unforgiving night, the downpour making her heart race even faster. She felt her pulse racing against her collarbone. The prospect of letting go of Tom tugged at her, an invisible chain connecting them still. "Go now." Tom screamed again as one of the tattooed men took a significant step forward, fists clenched. Fear rippled through her. She realized the end of one chapter in her life was about to collide with the beginning of another. In that fleeting moment, the choice crystallized before her. It wasn't just about Tom. It was about her own freedom, her own protection. She caught Mark's intense gaze and felt the stir of resolve within her. This was her life to reclaim, now teetering on the edge of ruin. With a sudden burst of courage, she made her decision. Taking a breath deep into her lungs, she spun back to Tom. "We're not leaving you." The words spilled out of her, an affirmation of everything she fought against this night. The tattooed men paused, sensing the shift, their expressions shifting from grins to focused intensity. There was no backing down now, they were all in, but as the rain pounded around them, it wasn't just a storm brewing, it was a battle of wills, a turning point that would shape their destinies forever. "Get ready," she whispered to Mark, her heart pounding in sync with the thunder. "This isn't over yet. We've awakened something awful, and we need to face it." But the real question remained as the first of the men brandished a knife, glimmering ominously in the light. Would they truly stand together, or would this night end with more than just lost trust? Emily's fingers tightened around Mark's arm, her breath caught in her throat. The tattooed men looked like wolves circling their prey, each movement calculated and predatory. Mark shifted in front of her, creating a barrier, but Emily could see the uncertainty in his eyes. Time slowed as the lead man took another menacing step forward, his knife reflecting the fleeting light, a glint of razor-sharp danger. "Let us make this simple," the man drawled, his voice low and mocking. "You can walk away now, or lose everything trying to play the hero." Tom groaned, clutching his side, struggling to remain upright. "Don't you dare listen to him." He spat out the words, each one a battle against the pain. "You have to fight." Fight? The word echoed in her mind, the gravity of it weighing heavily. Was she ready for that? The thought sent ripples of fear racing down her spine, yet deep down, she felt a spark emerging, igniting her resolve. The sirens were closing in, drowning beneath the tension that hung in the air like thick fog. She could no longer think about the consequences, only survival mattered. But survival meant facing the consequences head-on. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I can't let them take him. We're not leaving him." Mark replied fiercely, determination etched on his face. "But we have to act now together." Emily nodded, her heart swelling with an unyielding strength. "On 3, we run. We need to draw them away from Tom." Mark's eyes widened, understanding dawning. 1, 2 Suddenly, chaos erupted. Tom pushed himself up, using every ounce of strength to dart towards the nearest tattooed man. Emily didn't register the sly grin spreading across the lead man's face as Tom lunged, desperation fueling him. "Tom, no!" She screamed, but the world had shifted. Tom fell to the ground again, and in that split second, Mark propelled her back towards the door. "Now! Run!" he shouted. They bolted toward the house, rain pelting against their skin, stinging like tiny needles. The sound of boots thudding against the pavement followed hard behind them, the feral growls of the men growing louder, fueled by rage and vengeance. Emily's heart pounded furiously as Mark flung open the door, shoving her inside. "You go! Go!" he yelled, eyes wide with fear. "No, I'm not leaving you!" Emily cried, on the brink of hyperventilating. They were out of time. She could hear the clash of voices behind them, the danger spiraling out of control. "Get the phone!" Mark shouted as he stepped back outside, ready to protect her at all costs. She stumbled inside, fingers racing to dial the emergency number. Her heart clenched painfully, images of Tom's struggle haunting her thoughts. The operator on the line answered, but each word felt like it was lost in a fog of desperation. "Help, we're being attacked." "There are men outside." The line disconnected abruptly. The lights flickered, casting unsettling shadows around her. Emily's stomach twisted as she dropped the phone. She rushed to the window, peering through the curtains. Outside, the scene had become pandemonium. Mark faced off with 2 of the men, his movements quick and calculated. Every punch he threw was matched by a blow sent back, but he was fighting a losing battle. "Mark!" she breathed, her voice nearly strangled. She felt the wetness of a tear slip down her cheek, fear mixing with anger and frustration that in desperation. Emily snatched a heavy object from a nearby table, an ornate vase, and flung open the door. "Mark! Duck!" He barely had time to respond before she hurled the vase with all her strength. It smashed against one of the men's heads, stunning him momentarily. Mark seized the moment, launching himself at the other man. But beneath the adrenaline-fueled courage, doubt crept in. The odds were stacked against them. "Get inside!" Mark yelled, his voice fierce and unwavering despite the odds. He had always been the protector, and now it was her turn to protect him. Before she could make her next move, a chilling laugh echoed behind her. The lead man, now unscathed, stepped into the doorway, blocking her exit. Well, looks like we're not done with this little game yet. Emily's heart sank, the realization hitting her like a punch. They had only just begun to play, and the stakes were higher than she ever imagined. Could they truly escape this nightmare? As the man's eyes glinted with malice, she knew one thing: they were outnumbered, but the fight was far from over. "Back away," she warned, her voice shaking but fierce, "or you'll regret it." But the lead man stepped closer, a twisted grin spreading across his face. "Oh, sweetheart, I think you're going to regret this night a whole lot more than I ever will." Outside, Mark struggled, and the chaos swirled around her. How could it possibly end well now? A rush of thought thumped in her head. Could they fight back? Would anyone come to help? Or was this just the beginning of a nightmare that might consume everything they held dear? As she stared down the barrel of fate, she had to wonder, how far could they truly go to escape? Emily's heart raced as the lead man loomed over her, his taunts slithering through the air like smoke. Panic clawed at her throat. The sounds of the fight outside echoed like a dark symphony, fists pounding flesh, the sickening thud of bodies hitting the ground, and Mark's grunts of effort drowning in the chaos. "Get ready to regret your choices, sweetheart," he sneered, the knife glinting ominously in his hand. Emily pressed her back against the doorframe, every instinct screaming that she couldn't stand still. Mark was still outside, and she could only imagine what was happening out there. She squeezed her eyes shut for a brief moment, feeling her breath hitch. She needed to think. Suddenly, a noise broke through her thoughts, the unmistakable sound of sirens swirling nearer. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. The lead man turned away, irritation flickering across his face, his grip on the knife tightening. "Looks like your little rescue is too late," he mocked, eyeing his men. "Let us finish this before they get here." "Mark!" Emily shouted, voice cracking, knowing she may not get another chance. But the lead man blocked her exit, and she had to think of something fast. "I want to let you hurt him," she declared, surprising even herself with the ferocity in her voice. The man's expression shifted momentarily, disbelief flashed across his face. It was enough to buy her a second. Without thinking, she lunged past him, adrenaline propelling her forward, hoping to reach Mark and offer him any kind of support she could. Outside, the rain had intensified, muddying the ground. Mark struggled against one man, his breath coming in quick gasps, his punches losing steam. The other man closed in, ready to join the fight. Emily caught Mark's eye, and they shared a moment of understanding. They had to work together. "Mark!" she screamed again, rushing toward them. In the chaos, she saw a jagged piece of broken glass near her feet. Instinct kicked in. She scooped it up, fingers trembling around the shard, its edges slick from the rain. "Mark! Turn!" Just as he spun around to face her, Emily hurled the glass shard with all her might. It sliced through the air and struck the man behind Mark in the thigh. He yelped, stumbling back, and Mark seized the opportunity to take him down. "Emily, get back!" he bellowed, just as the lead man lunged for her. She barely managed to dodge, feeling the rush of air as the knife sliced dangerously close to her side. "Stay away from her!" Mark roared. He was fighting against multiple enemies and still, his fierce protectiveness shined through the intricate strokes of battle. As she backed away into the doorway, she realized that she could fight with the element of surprise. Just then, she saw Tom, still on the ground, but trying to drag himself toward them, his face pale with pain. "Tom!" Emily shouted, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't abandon him. But the lead man eyed Tom, despising his defiance. Now, isn't this interesting? A brave little soldier in a dying fight, he snarled. He turned his focus back on Emily. So, what's it going to be? You put down that shard and let me finish this, or I guarantee he won't breathe another moment. Each heartbeat felt like an eternity. The sirens were getting louder, closing in, but time still felt suspended in that horrifying moment. Emily's mind raced, searching for an option, any option. Do it. Tom pleaded, his voice strained. Get us out of here. You have to run. But run where? The very thought of leaving Mark and Tom behind made her feel like the ground was crumbling beneath her. At that moment, she heard the distinct sound of a police siren approaching, shattering the pocket of silence filled only with dread. The lead man's expression darkened, realizing time was running out. Looks like we have to play another hand, he hissed, shifting his focus as he gestured to one of the men. Get him. With that, the men surged toward Tom, and Mark's eyes widened in horror. The moment had arrived. Would she stand and fight, or would she risk everything to save them both? The swirling turmoil hung heavy in the air, a standoff brewing, but the clock was ticking. Tension crackled like electricity, and Emily wondered if this was their last chance to escape or the beginning of something much darker. As she gripped the shard tightly, able to taste the stakes in her mouth, a chilling question rumbled through her mind: would her courage be enough to save them, or would it all come crashing down? Emily lunged forward, the glass shard gripped in her fist like a last hope. Time seemed to slow, every heartbeat echoing in her ears as she weighed her options. Tom was in danger, but Mark was still trying to fend off the lead man and his lackeys. Get away from him, she screamed, her voice raw and desperate. The lead man's eyes flared with amusement, but just behind that facade, she saw something darker, a predator sensing a weakness. You think you can save him with that toy? He taunted, darting forward with lethal intent. The knife glimmered as it sliced through the rain, but Emily was fueled by adrenaline. With a swift motion, she pivoted, narrowly avoiding the blade that whipped past her shoulder. Mark, standing his ground against two attackers, was a fierce sight. Gritting his teeth, he landed a punch that sent one man reeling. But the other, seeing the opportunity, lunged for Tom. No! Emily shouted, feeling a surge of strength as her instincts kicked in. She darted sideways, sprinting toward Tom just as the man closed in on him. In the chaos, she threw the shard, aiming not for the man's body, but for something far more crucial. The glass embedded itself into the mud, a calculated distraction. Tom, grab it! She yelled, her heart jumping as he stretched out for it. But the lead man had realized her ploy and twisted around, fury flashing in his eyes. You've made a mistake, sweetheart, he roared, charging toward her again. Mark was preoccupied with his opponent, fighting tooth and nail to stave off the assault. Emily felt a surge of fear, each muscle in her body screaming at her to flee, but her feet were rooted in a defiance born from both love and necessity. Just hold on, Tom. She urged, watching him claw his way toward the glass while Mark was fighting off his challenger with grim determination. In a moment of pure instinct, she reached down and snatched the piece back up. With a deep breath, she stood firm. Fighting back against the rising tide of panic, she faced the lead man head-on, channeling every ounce of courage to hold her ground. You think you can scare me? She shouted, her voice steady despite the tremors of fear. The lead man hesitated only a second, and in that moment, Emily took a step closer, brandishing the shard like it was a sword. You're going to leave us alone. I won't let you hurt anyone else. The sirens grew louder, merging with the thunderous beat of the rain. Mark, sensing the shift, turned to look at her, surprise and admiration flickering in his gaze. Emily, stay back. He warned. But firing back, she retorted, we need to work together. He nodded, a quick acknowledgement that sent waves of determination rippling through her. Together, they were stronger. In an effort to buy them time, she shouted, "You think you can control everything with fear? People like you are weak." He scoffed, advancing with a wicked gleam in his eye. "We'll see who's weak when the cops get here," he said, slowly advancing. As the sirens drew closer, Emily stilled her breath. She sensed an opening, a fleeting chance, and lunged at him with surprising speed, aiming the shard at his arm. He sidestepped, but not quick enough. It grazed his skin. The look of shock on his face fueled her resolve. "Mark," she yelled, desperate to rally him. But just then, a deafening crash echoed through the darkness, a flash of blue lights illuminating the scene. The tension broke like a dam as police cars skidded up the street. "Hands up! Drop your weapons!" The officers shouted, their voices booming over the chaos. The lead man hesitated, weighing his options, and Emily realized this was their chance. "Now, Mark!" Together, they launched themselves towards Tom, urgency igniting their every step. But just as they reached the wounded man, an unexpected twist unfurled. The lead man, in a last act of desperation, swirled to face the officers, both knife and fury unleashed in a wild frenzy. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she witnessed the chaos surging anew. Was their escape now truly in danger? Or could they still turn the tide before it was too late? As the headlights bore down, illuminating everything in stark clarity, Emily's heart raced with one terrifying thought: what would happen next? The chaos exploded around them. Emily felt the world teeter on the brink of disaster as the sirens surrounded them. Mark, Tom, and she stood close together, a makeshift wall against the storm of violence crashing against their lives. "Over here!" one of the officers shouted, waving frantic arms toward the tattooed men as they reeled from the sudden intrusion of law enforcement. Emily glanced over her shoulder, heart hammering. The lead man was momentarily distracted, surveying the approaching police with panic filling his eyes. "Now's our only chance," Mark urged, gripping Tom's arm as they dragged him toward safety. Emily's mind raced. They had to get to the car. No, they needed to get away from here, away from everything that had brought them to this hellish moment. But before she could act, the lead man turned back, fury igniting within him as he eyed Emily. "You'll regret this, sweetheart," he shouted, his voice soaked with venom. Emily flinched at his words. Fear clawed at her guts, but she felt the palpable strength of Mark beside her. Together, they had fought against the rising tide of danger, and they wouldn't stop now. "Stay close," Mark yelled, pushing her in front of him as they dashed toward the nearest police car. Emily felt Tom's weight pressing against them, burdening their escape but igniting her resolve even more. They had to fight for their future, for all they had left. "Hey! Get away from them!" one officer shouted, moving forward with his weapon drawn. His voice rang like a bell, echoing amidst the downpour. Emily grabbed Tom's arm, instinctively shoving them all closer. Safety was near, just within reach, but the lead man wasn't done. He lunged toward them, a terrifying flash of steel glinting in the darkness. "No one's leaving," he roared, his movements fueled by desperation, rage spilling over. In that hellish instant, the lead detective trained his weapon on him. "Drop it now." In an act of reckless defiance, the man charged forward, and the world around Emily ignited into chaos one final time. There was a bang sharp and sudden as the officer fired, the sound roaring like thunder, cutting through all the noise. The lead man dropped, collapsing to the slick ground as if the life had drained from him. Emily gasped, her heart racing as the realization washed over her. He was down, no longer a threat. But the consequences hung in the rain-soaked air, heavy as the cloud overhead. The other tattooed men suddenly lost their nerve, scrambling back in panic. Cries of surrender cascaded from them as they raised their hands, fear etched deep in their features. We didn't want any trouble," one of them stammered. The officers moved swiftly, herding the men toward their cars, securing them under the watchful eyes of sirens spinning like angry stars in the night. Relief crashed over Emily like a wave, fierce and warming. "Stay still." An officer barked as Mark finally let go of Tom, allowing him to sag against the police car. The officers moved in to check on him, their hands gentle but firm, ensuring he was okay. "Oh, thank God," Tom muttered, pain lacing his voice, but Emily could see the flicker of gratitude in his eyes as she grasped his shoulder. "You too," he began, breathless. "You saved me." Emily turned to Mark, who breathed heavily, a look of exhausted disbelief hanging on his face. They had faced the storm together, and together, they had emerged. "I thought I was going to lose you," he whispered, fear still lingering in his gaze, but now, they were united fighting together, refusing to bow to their fate. They faced the horizon, a dawn just beginning to awaken after the tumultuous night. Moments later, a soft rain began to fall, cleansing the scene as the officers secured the tattooed men. Emily felt hopeful, relief washing over her despite the chaos that had erupted just moments before. Standing together, they embraced the risk of the unknown, ready to uncover a brighter future. They would confront what lay ahead, together. Because this was more than just a fight, they had weathered a tempest and come out stronger. As the officers began to question them, their voices faded into the background. Emily felt the warmth of Mark's hand in hers, and she smiled, but the quest for clarity wasn't over. What had her lottery win cost her? And how would it change their lives moving forward? Their ordeal may have ended with the storm, but the journey had only just begun. They had survived the loss, the fear, the chaos. Together, they could conquer anything. Now was the moment to cherish anew, to rebuild, with hope burning brightly in their hearts, and like the sun breaking through the clouds after a relentless storm, their future remained unwritten, a blank canvas awaiting their touch. So here we stand, resilient, ready to forge ahead, as each breath carries the promise of tomorrow. Remember, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and thrill you. Smash the like button now. Your engagement fuels the algorithm and allows us to bring you even more incredible content. Flood the comments section with your reactions and thoughts about this thrilling conclusion. I want to hear your theories and feelings. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful story. They deserve to experience the journey too. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.